welcome to New Beginnings Farmstead, and thank you so much for being so patient with us. Technical issues.
We understand.
I'm Elisa. This is Egidio. We have Ryan and Julie.
Hi.
If you could introduce yourselves and tell us about your farm. We are dying to hear about it.
I am Janet Bowman. This is Doug Bowman. And we have Wakeman Farms. Very small maple producer in, I would say, Northeast Ohio.
Kind of north central Ohio.
Yeah, right at the Lorain and Huron County lines.
We're about I don't know if you ever heard of a little town called Vermilion, Ohio. It's right on the lake west of Cleveland, and we're about 20 minutes south of Vermilion.
Mm-hmm. All right, so they're between Cleveland and Toledo?
Yes. Yeah, a little closer towards Cleveland, but between Cleveland and Toledo.
About an hour out of Cleveland,
west of Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you say
this is a farm I grew up on, lived here all my life, and my dad never did anything as far as maple related. He had an off the farm job and ran the farm here, raised pigs and some cows, and mom had chickens. I went to school, came home, helped around here with whatever I could, and always asked my folks about doing, maple syrup, how it's made. My dad always grumbled it's too much work, didn't want to get involved in it. And
he was right.
Years went by, and after school, I had an opportunity to, help a family for quite a number of years, actually, and that's how I got started in it. Mm-hmm. And then Janet and I have been married 12 years now, and she asked me when we got married, well, why don't you just do it yourself? So this is our 11th year of doing it myself. So
wow.
Yeah, we got started in it ourselves 11 years ago. And
we helped, the year we got married, we helped some neighbors do it. And I had never done it before. So it was my learning year that year to help some neighbors. We literally left at the end of sugar season. It was still going on, and our wedding was scheduled. So we left for that. And then the following year, I had bought an evaporator for Doug for Christmas to surprise him for Christmas. Yeah. Didn't know it was going to involve so much work on my part.
He had asked me, well, if you were to do it yourself, what do you need? So I took her one day to our local, not real local, but where we get our supplies. It was an Amish place. Yeah. And I took her.
Took me to his dealer.
I learned on a big evaporator, on a 40 by 14.
Oh, wow.
And and like 2,000 buckets gathered with draft horses, all by hand. So that's how I learned. And I always thought if I was ever going to do it myself, much smaller scale. And we went to this dealer, and I showed her they had a 2x6 liter WSC. It's basically an economy model evaporator. I said, something like this right here is all I'd want. Well, this was like probably early fall after we had gotten married. And so Christmas came, and we opened gifts Christmas morning, and the last thing she gave me was a small little cardboard box, and inside of it there was a handkerchief that one of my handkerchiefs I always carry, and a note. And the note said, put this on as a blindfold, and we're going for a ride. So she took me out, got in her truck.
It was hidden in the neighbor's barn. They were hiding it for me.
She had a little Chevy Colorado pickup truck, and I put the blindfold on, tipped the seat all the way back.
I drove around the block and everything. He still knew where we were.
The fun part, I knew every turn she made. I knew exactly where we were. And when we got to the final destination, she says, "So where are we?" And I said, "Well,
we're in the neighbor's driveway.
We're in the neighbor's driveway across the street at their barn." And sure enough, that's what she was so upset and thought I peeked. I did not peek. And
but it was still a surprise.
It was still a surprise. She got me out of the truck, and
I was quite surprised at how much work it was after that.
Yeah. So we walked up to the door of the barn, slid it open, and there sat this shiny new evaporator.
Wow.
And then I looked at her and I says, "Well, I don't want to upset you, but we're not going to make syrup on that this spring." And then she's like, "Well, why?" I said, "Well, we need to put a building up.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to set this up out in the yard and go at it. Not going to do it like that." So
we built the sugar house around the evaporator.
But we did make syrup that spring. Actually, our supplier had also had an auction sale that had another, before she bought the one that she got, there was another evaporator just like it there, and she went to the sale and tried to buy it, and it just went for more than I told her to spend. But she did buy there was probably 15 or 20 old sap buckets and the metal spiles and stuff, the lids for them. They were all in pretty decent shape. She bought those. And then she also got a real good deal through the auction on a liter finishing pan. The 16 by 24, 15-gallon finishing pan. She did buy that. It was brand new. So we had that. But what we ended up doing in our backyard here at the farmhouse, there's two great big soft maples, and it was in January, and it's kind of uncommon. At the time, it was uncommon in this area to tap in January, but we'd had some really cold weather, and then we had this weather this week coming up where it looked like it was perfect for sap. And I thought, it's not going to hurt to tap those trees and hang. So I hung 4 buckets on each tree. And in a week's time, we gathered 75-gallon sap off those 2 trees. Those trees, we still tap them. And those 2 trees produce like crazy. They're big old yard trees with a big crown, and they just produce sap like crazy. And it's always a higher sugar content than the sugar maples right out of the woods.
Wow.
Usually every time I test it, it's anywhere between 2 and 2.5%.
So we boiled on a turkey fryer that year.
In the garage. 2 days.
With a brand new evaporator sitting outside.
Spent $120 in propane and made
that much syrup.
We made just shy of 2 gallons of syrup. So
nice.
We had about $60 a gallon worth in it. But we did make syrup that year.
So quite a start.
and then we
built. But did you get the building built then?
How many taps do you have now?
Pardon me?
How many taps do you have now?
So we run off of about 800.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
we're still quite small.
The majority of it is actually sap that I buy from a fella. Mm-hmm. It comes from a tubing system. And there's probably close to 500 trees on tubing on vacuum. Yeah. And then he also hangs another. It's always, he doesn't do a very good job of counting. Usually a couple hundred bags he'll hang.
We can hang in our woods. We don't put a tubing system in our own woods. We just use bags in our own woods. And we can get 100 to 120 in our woods.
Our own woods is all soft maple though. We don't have, there's 2 sugar maple trees in it, and it's, for years and years when my dad had cattle, our whole woods was fenced in, and there's a pond back there, and the cows stayed in the woods year round, and the cows just kept all the new growth from coming on. And so and years of cutting wood for heating the houses, the farmhouse and our house. Our woods is actually pretty thin, but we can put 100 taps in it. But being that it's all soft maple, one of the problems we have if we get, almost a week of pretty warm weather, our soft maples will bud pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then you're dealing with that.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the help that we have, you explain it to them, but if you turn them loose on their own, you're not always going to trust that they
check the tree.
Check for, make sure. I always tell them if you're in doubt, what I like to make people do is at the beginning of the season, and I tell people this on a lot of the Facebook pages, they'll question, well, how do I know if my sap's bad? I said, well, at the very beginning of the year, the first run of sap you get, taste it and smell it, and remember that taste and that smell, and check it every time you collect. And if you notice it's starting to change, then things are changing. And I learned that over the years. But you can't always rely on kids you send to the woods to do that. So the sap that we buy, it's all on sugar maples, so there's no question there. Those things still produce long into the warm weather.
There's no question, but every load of sap that comes in here, we still test and check every single load that comes in.
Yeah, we do.
So we check the sugar content and then just check kind of overall quality as well. So we're still knowing that it's good stuff coming in here as well. So, and then Doug has built his own small RO system, reverse osmosis system. It's a two?
Well, it's a 2-post, the 4x40 membranes, 4-inch diameter, 40 inches long. The first year, this was our third year running it. The first year I ran it, I only had a 1-post on it, and then for last year I upgraded it, and I also put a higher volume, high pressure pump on it.
And when he built it, because it's homemade, it's not like a permanent in place. It's actually on a 2-wheel cart, like a dolly, like a furniture dolly, and he can move it around to wherever he needs it to be. And our sugar house isn't heated year round, so in the dead of winter when it's cold, we can actually, put it into a heated barn or a heated basement so it doesn't freeze. So it's at least mobile for us.
So 10, 11 years ago when we built the sugar house, I had no idea it was going to turn into what it has. Initially I'm thinking, well, if we make 20, 30, maybe even 40 gallons of syrup every year, that's enough for us and the people that help us. And well, the first year we were running on probably 250, maybe 300 taps. We did tap our woods, and then we had a neighbor that he had some sugar maples in his front yard, so we went down and tapped those. And then he said, well, if you want, you can go back and check my woods. And I'd never been in that woods before. It's basically almost right across the street from us. Lived here all my life, but I went into it. It's a big woods, and we hung probably close to 100 bags the first time we went back there. So I told Janet, I said, that was on a Sunday. I said, well, tomorrow run down to the supplier and get another 100 bags and taps. And she did. And the next night we hung those. And so we were probably close to 300 taps the very first year, but we made 60 gallons the first year also.
Nice.
And that other woods that we did get into, like I said, I didn't scout it out ahead of time, just walked into one corner of it, and there was quite a few soft maples that we tapped. Well, after the first year being in there, he let us back in there several years, and we were able to put 300 taps alone all on sugar maples. So we didn't even tap soft maples in there. And there was a couple of years we tapped our woods early and then pulled after a couple weeks, and the weather was looking like it was going to get a little warm. We pulled the bags out of our woods and took them to another woods and rehung them. And that was down to down the road.
Other neighbors the other way.
And we were up in our number of taps that year, probably close to about 450.
It's every year it's just gradually grown more and more and more.
So as far as we started out with the 2x6 WSE, which we had no problem getting 30 gallons an hour boil rate consistently out of that thing with, good dry wood. Well, the only thing that's original about that evaporator anymore is the actual frame of the arch itself. The rest of it, I converted it to it's forced air. I put the airtight front on it and the heavy duty. It's basically an Inferno arch now, an 1-liter Inferno arch. And then we
did some pretty serious upgrades to it this year.
This year alone, yeah. But over the last 2019, we switched over from the original pans and we got the liter. It's a Max Combo flue pan. It's a combination of drop and raise flue. And we put the Revolution syrup pan on where you can reverse your flow and draw off of the one side all the time. And then we added the blower that year. And that jumped us up to about 45 gallons an hour on it. Then the following year, I added the airtight front, and that put us close to 50. That was a big improvement itself. And then we had a steam hood with a preheater built by a fellow in Pennsylvania, Creekside Welding. His name's David Jokum. His name's on a lot of the Facebook pages. He does some really nice work.
He's a good fabricator.
He's a one-man band. His shop is kind of crude, but he is getting a lot more modern equipment that's making him more efficient, and he just does beautiful work. So
the doozies of the updates this year were
we had a steam away built, and then I didn't like the performance of the Revolution pan from Leader. Their design, their engineering on the way it works is okay, but the way they had it set up, too much of the one compartment that you want to make syrup in is on the rail of the arch, and it's blocking the heat transfer. So it doesn't get. I was fighting if I was wanting to run the syrup flow one direction versus the other. I was fighting. It was wanting to make syrup in the 2 center compartments on the pan before it would get to the compartment to where it should have been syrup.
What's your rate now?
So we had David Yoakum build the same pan, but he turned the configuration of it. So it's basically a cross flow pan with on the Leader, on the Revolution, it has 1 crossflow compartment and 4 lateral compartments. Well, he turned that. So your back 2 crossflows are where you can make your syrup. And it works a whole lot better. So we had a hood built for that. He built the steam away for us to go on the flue pan also. And that has the air injection in it. And that we're running about at the 85 gallon an hour mark with it now. It's come a long way. And thankfully, I'm glad I did it for the amount of taps we're working off of and the intake of sap we're getting on,
What that really means is we're getting older and we're tired, and we don't like 12 and 15-hour days of boiling any longer.
Yeah, our days have gotten a little shorter.
Yeah, so
except while we're out there and everything's warm, we're always saying, well, let's bottle it. So
yeah,
we sit there and bottle it too and get it all out of the way the same day.
So the way we kind of work is during season, I don't make syrup. I'm the grunt labor. I just help. I do whatever is needed. I'm either cutting wood before season or doing whatever is needed, and he's making the syrup. after season, I have to sell it. He becomes the grunt labor and I do the selling. So we just trade positions.
Yeah, we do farm markets and stuff
Right.
like that. So
yeah,
I got to help load the car. I got to drive and get her there and get set up and all that stuff.
We added a retail area this year as well. We bought a shed, and it's just an empty shell. And inside the shed, we built a wall for one end of it to be storage area, and then one end of it is a retail space. And I have some local items from local merchants: jams, jellies, candles, teas, waxes, and can sell all those things in our little retail space now. So,
do you have that located near the road, or do people?
It's actually, we have a big parking lot because one of the like when we first talked about getting together and talking, we were having an open house. Ohio has Maple Madness days, and their Ohio Maple Madness tours where you can tour a lot of the sugar houses in Ohio. And we were on that tour. It's the first 2 weekends in March. So we hold an open house during that. And when we have visitors that come in, and we have some trees selected. They're actually cross sections of logs that are strapped to a pole. And we hand people a drill and we teach it. We speak to them first and talk about the history and the importance of it, and explain what they're going to do. And then we take them out and they actually drill into those logs because we don't want them tapping our real trees. The logs look like Swiss cheese when they're done. So they drill and actually put the taps in the spiles. And then the 2 big trees that Doug mentioned that are in the farmyard, we have buckets of sap sitting there, and we take them they have empty buckets, and then we take them. They must collect the sap. They've tapped their tree. Now they have to collect the sap. They carry that to the sugar house, and we teach them how to test it, with the sap hydrometer, test their sugar content, see the reverse osmosis and explain that system. And they see it actually pumping into the sugar house, and the evaporator is running at the time he's running it. They see the whole thing, see it drawing off and it being filtered. It goes into the canner, and at that point, we have sanitized bottles because we have a kitchenette in the sugar house. We have the glass bottles that are in the oven, keeping them warm, and then they can select a bottle that they want to buy, and they can buy that empty bottle, and then we help them. We let them fill their own bottle. So they get a little it's a balsa wood tag. It has our name burned on it. It says bottled by, and they have to fill their name in on it. So we have like a big tent set up, like a circus tent, like a one elephant circus tent.
A 20 by 30.
One elephant. So I invite about like 10 or 12 local vendors to be here as well, set up. Because when they're bottling that, it's 180, 190 degrees, it has to cool off for a little bit. So while they wait for their bottle to cool for about 15 or 20 minutes, they can shop all these local vendors. And of course, we have some food trucks here and so forth. So it's just kind of our own little festival and fair that we put together and kind of promote the maple industry. And it's important they see where their food comes from, and it's nice for the kids to see it and learn it. We usually do like one day is just open to the public and families and so forth, and then one day is groups, and we get Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H groups. We've had a group of Masons, women homesteaders were here, and they'll take their group through and they'll do it, and that's really nice for the educational part where they really learn the process and what we do and why we do it, and about keeping it clean and keeping it healthy for them and their food and where it comes from. So it's a really, really good educational thing for them.
That's great.
And we have a lot of repeat visitors every year. People just love coming.
Yeah.
And then she mentioned, you asked about if our retail area is close to the road. Well, we have a parking lot in our backyard that I built that 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when we started doing this. I didn't envision it going this far. Right. And what was this, like the 5th year of our open house?
But the parking lot's gotten bigger and bigger.
Every year I add a little more.
Which is nice. I have less and less to mow every year.
Yeah. The first year we did it, it looked like we were having an auction sale here. We had people lined up on the edge of the road parked, and
it had no idea it would get so big and be so popular. But very, very grateful that it is.
Yeah, looking back, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't change it. Well, the only thing I'd do differently is I'd have built everything bigger. That's all.
Yeah.
All right, so I got a couple questions.
What's that?
You built an RO, and so what are you taking your percentage from? 2% about?
So
this is an argument here.
Okay.
Not really. It's not an argument, but
I used to be no RO at all. I'm like, you're not messing with the flavor. I want that maple flavor. I don't want you to tweak that or anything.
But my plan for building it was not to take it to a high percentage. I just wanted to make the sap that I collected a manageable amount to boil in a day's time.
Right.
So I think the highest I ran it up to this year, just because we had a couple of big days, I took it up to like 7%. Okay. Most of the time it's between 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm looking for out of it.
Again, going back to the fact we're getting older, we don't want to be out there all night.
Yeah. And it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So our main holding tank for our raw sap, it's a 700-gallon dairy tank. And I have another 300-gallon dairy tank that I put my concentrate in.
Yeah.
And then I've got a 400-gallon, it's a CDL sap tank that I use for my permeate.
Right.
Well, if I can take that 700 gallons and make 400 gallons of permeate out of it, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah.
300 gallons of concentrate, it doesn't take long to boil.
Right.
Now, at 85 gallons an hour with our evaporator.
Yeah, no, very similar size operation. Same thing. We have a liter micro 2, 2-post 4x40. The same thing. I mean, you built.
That's basically mine is the same thing. It's just home built, not as fancy.
Yeah.
What percentage do you take yours up to?
This year we were running like 1.7 initially out of the woods, and bringing it up just over 7. Again, same thing. We're fighting. We all have full-time jobs. We're all fighting the clock.
Right. Yes.
We run a 3x10 evaporator, revolution pans, Inferno arch. It's got a home-built steam hood on it. So a preheater rather than a steam hood, a preheater. So we're probably running just a little over 80, maybe 85.
Yeah.
With the dry wood, and overall, we do what we can. Similar setup, 700-gallon dairy tank on the receiving side, and then a 300 or 350 on the concentrate, and then we run a 500-gallon poly tank outdoors for the permeate. So similar setup.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, most of this year we made a big leap. We put half the stands in the back on vacuum, which definitely increased yield for us and reduced the collection. We were running a lot of, coming home at night, put the headlamp on, go through the woods, pump out the tanks. It's just too much. It's just too much.
It is. It really is.
It's not a full-time. It's a full-time job for all of us, but we don't have the full-time hours to put into it. So but now and the Maple Weekends in New York State are organized through the New York State Maple Association. So we're part of that, and Julie does the tours. Ryan puts on the show in the Sugar House. Everything you mentioned, I know a lot of things. I have not looked at my wife when you were talking because I know she's taking notes. She's like, "Oh, that's a great idea. Let them bottle it."
We're gonna do that.
As soon as we get it done with this interview, she is going to be all over it, aren't you, honey? You mentioned about the kitchenette. That's something that we decided last year, at the end of this season. that we're going to change in our sugar house now.
Yeah. And
easier.
part of that too helps, when you're out there all day boiling, it's just, have a fridge, have a microwave, have a stove, because we cook whole meals out there. And, when we had more help, because our helpers were the kids that are getting older and they're getting jobs, I would have a whole collection crew. You get home from work and it's like you're scrambling to get to the woods, like you said. So you come in from the woods, and now I got all these kids and helpers to feed. So it's nice to have that right in there. And Doug's balking at a TV and a dishwasher. So I'm just kind of out of luck there.
I would put a dishwasher in before a TV. It's bad enough everybody pulls the phones out and sits there and gets distracted.
Yeah.
I don't want things happen fast now, and we don't need distractions like that.
Right.
Yeah, no, it can turn bad fast, no doubt about it. But
yes.
No, we're as you said, we're blessed, we're thankful. There's no doubt about that. We started with a couple of buckets and bags, and now we're running tubing, and every time we turn around, there's another tree. Hey, that one's ready to go, and let's tap that next year. And,
right.
But yeah.
And when you're doing that, and you're not counting, and what the overall total ends up being, like,
Usually it's at the end of the season, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they'll go in the woods and they'll come back, and I'm like, "Did you add some?" Yeah. Stop adding. Stop adding.
Right.
Many, and they're like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. We're making a point that when we pull the taps to put them all in one bucket and then just count them at the end, and we
right.
That, see how close we are.
When we get our bags ready, we get the spiles in them and everything beforehand. We would take the buckets that we collect with, the 5-gallon buckets, and roll the bags and put them in there and put 20 per bucket. And then we just counted how many buckets we put out. So we knew exactly how many bags.
Yeah, it made it really nice, going to the woods to tap. All the bags were prepared. We'd spend a couple Saturday and Sunday afternoons in the house here in January, cutting the corners off, fighting over which corner to cut off.
Another fight, right-handed or left-handed.
We're all right-handed.
Yeah.
Even Janet is.
But I like them cut the other way.
Most of us like to carry the bucket in the left hand and grab the bag with the right hand and flip it.
And I do it the opposite.
She does it backwards.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's still a lot, though. Walking through the woods. I mean, for us, running the tubing and the vacuum certainly saved us quite.
That's a big difference. Yeah.
Big difference. And because we're doing what we can with what we have. We may not be running Leader or CDL or LaPierre tubing. We're just running to the hardware store, picking up some 1-inch 100 psi black pipe, poly pipe, and running into the woods the best we can. And every so often he's like, it's chugging at the vacuum. We got to go in there and find that drop, and now but no, that's great. Absolutely. Very, very good story. Excellent. Yeah. Very cool. The wood, how much wood do you go through?
Less now. It's kind of nice.
So I never have kept track as far as cords or anything. Okay. We did change our system as far as the way we stock our wood now. We've switched over to totes, the cages for the totes. Sure. I have 18 of them. Okay. And this year we used 7 totes. And then in the sugar house, we have a wood rack built that is fully stocked at the beginning of the season. And then there's a shed on our granary. It's an open 3-sided shed that had like 3 big stacks of wood in it for the last 4 or 5 years. Well, last year we used all but one of those stacks. So we used that stack and we emptied the stack in the sugar house, and then we use 7 totes. Okay. But as far as cords, I couldn't tell you. But for the amount of syrup we've made, it seemed like especially with the RO now, we're using less wood. Right. And then the efficiency of the evaporators has helped a lot also.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely the big improvement for us is the efficiency part of it. We do the same thing. We split. We're trying to get between 28 and 29-inch wood. We run it in the outdoor wood boiler. So when we split, we try to bring the sugar wood down to a smaller size of sticks.
How long is your syrup pan? You say you have a 2x10?
No, 3x10.
Oh, 3x10.
3x10, yeah.
So how long is your syrup pan? What's your
syrup pan's 3x3.
3x3. Okay. So your flues are farther back. You can get longer wood in your firebox.
Yeah. We can put 30-inch wood, no problem. Our splitter we bought is capable of splitting 30-inch wood.
Okay.
So, we buck the logs and stuff. It's all 30 inches, 29, and
right.
We can multi-split, and then we sugar wood it, small stuff so it burns faster. And
right.
We have a raised flue back pan on ours. On the Evolution, on the Revolution.
Oh, so it wouldn't matter how long your wood is, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's a combo of a raised and a drop flue. So the flues are still hanging down like a conventional drop flue pan. So we got to watch, putting wood in. Mm-hmm. I've found that 20-inch wood will work, but if I cut it 18, it's better. And I've found that I think I get a better heat transfer if I keep the fire back in away from the door because of the airtight front. It has those ports around it and allows the air movement to come up from between, through the grates and across the front of the wood stack. I don't think it does as well with all the fire right up tight against the door. Plus, it's kind of hard on the insulation on the door also.
Yeah.
Somebody melted it. I see that. Yeah.
I've replaced the insulation a couple of times already.
Yeah. The one thing that we found was a good improvement as far as the efficiency of the fire maintenance was the stack thermometer.
Yes.
That made a difference. So we, before you were running the clock about 4 to 6 minutes, depending on the wood, the consistency and stuff.
Right.
And then 2 years ago, we added a stack thermometer. So we run it right at the top of the main stack once it necks down to the 12-inch stainless. Nice. And we put the probe right in there. And now he's able to see as soon as that needle starts to drop, he's ready to go. Like he's ready to go.
Yeah.
So does that mean you had to fire sooner than you were? Or
well, now it doesn't matter. The consistency doesn't have to be there because it's not regulated by time.
Oh, okay.
It's regulated by the heat. So
right.
if all of a sudden the next tote I bring in has more pine or softwood than the hardwood, one, I got to hear about it anyway because, but two, he's able to look at it and say, okay, well, it's going to burn faster, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. He's a crazy man. But yeah, so that was definitely probably the one biggest efficiency improvements we've made. Yeah. We went from a single post RO 4x40 to a dual. That definitely helped us on the time saving and definitely cut back. I mean, it didn't change the flavor on our side. We can't tell the difference on it. I know there's people that have said that, like you mentioned. But no, we've talked to other farmers, and some are true, like they're true to the art, and they're like, nope, no RO. We're boiling, and that's it, right? If it takes us 50 gallons to one, that's what we're doing. We just don't have the time, and we haven't been able to. So, and I know I'm probably hogging some questions here, but what about like the grading? Do you find yourself doing a lot of light syrup, darker syrup, amber? The different.
We don't. We take whatever we get. We don't even grade it. We don't. We bottle in glass bottles. Some plastic, but mostly glass. So you can see it. You can see the difference. We do have some people that say, I wanted some light colored stuff. I want the amber, really delicate. And well, you know what? We get what we get, and we don't bother grading. You can look at the bottles and you can pick something that looks lighter to you, but we don't promise anybody, and we don't, boast that, oh, we've got, grade A or grade B. No, what Mother Nature gave us, we take it. Yeah.
In New York, they're pretty strict about it. We have to do the grading.
Do you really?
It has to be, and it has to be a sticker or on the label. Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you do for filtering then?
Well, so we've come a long way with that also.
A long way.
And initially, when we drew off into a milk pail with a pre-filter clothespin on top of it. And then that pail got poured into our finishing pan with the Orlon filter on the bottom and a couple pre-filters on top, and that was it. But we were just putting it in plastic containers, so you couldn't see it. And then we added some glass containers over, after a couple of years, and then you're seeing the niter build up. So we switched to a vacuum filter.
Yeah.
And that made a big difference.
It worked for a while,
but it wasn't, it wasn't the ultimate filtering system. It did work.
We had a year of some really tough, really bad niter, and you just kind of couldn't win with it. And that was the year that we said, okay, that's got to go.
And we did use everybody uses DE for a regular filter press. Well, it does work with a vacuum filter also.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend it for a vacuum filter.
It did help, yeah.
It'll make a nice cake layer, right on top of the filters. And what I would do, I'd put a pre-filter in first on the very bottom, and then I'd put like 4, thin finish filters on top of that. And after every session, every dump and running through the vacuum filter, I'd pull that top filter off and just rinse it off and put it right back on. And that DE, that whole cake would just slide right off there, and the filter was fine. But still, it wasn't getting you real perfect.
Right.
It cleaned it up a lot, but in glass bottles, after it sat several weeks, you'd still see a little bit of niter in the bottom. Mm-hmm. So 2 years ago, I ordered a actual filter press, and it's
not a big one. It's a little one.
It's a Smoky Lake. It's got the air diaphragm pump on it.
Amazing.
When we first got it, I bought the smallest, but it have 6 filters. Yeah. Though I added the addition kit to it for this past year. Yeah. And now I did learn something with it. I had a couple hiccups.
This was fun. Yeah.
I had a couple hiccups with it. So I lucked out the first few times using it. Worked great. Next time I go to use it, what we always do before we just start filtering and running it in the finishing pan or in our bottling container, I'll circulate it back into the draw-off tank, to kind of charge the filter press and make sure it's coming out clear. And it was not coming out clear. Kept adding more DE and more DE. I was pulling my hair out. It wouldn't clean up. So we
was sidelined. There was an argument.
We stripped it all. We pulled it all apart, cleaned it all out, put it back together, and then it worked fine. I don't know what I did wrong. Well, that happened a couple times. And then there were many times of using it that it just
wouldn't work.
No, it worked fine right off the bat. Well, the last time here this year, we were having that same issue. So I called Smoky Lake and talked to a younger fellow named Jimmy up there. And he says, well, are you cleaning it properly? How do you clean it? I said, well, when we clean it, I pull it all apart. I run a hot water hose through the pump. We take each window plate, each filter plate out, and rinse them, let them dry, and then reassemble it. He's like, okay, one question. He says, when you put the very end plate on, the very last plate on the very end, he says, are you paying attention to the orientation of how you're putting it on? And I says, no, it only goes on one way.
Right.
And then it dawned on me, no, that can go on two ways. You can put that on upside down because it has the holes. It doesn't have the hooks like the window plates and the filters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you take that off and you look at it, on the side that faces the filter, it's all waffled.
Yeah.
But down in the one corner, there's a little port with a couple holes.
Right. Yeah.
If that needs to be on the bottom, you can turn that thing over and put it on upside down. If that's on top, you're not going to filter your syrup. It's just going to pass through and be dirty every time.
Well, we don't have problems, but we ended up having issues if the filter paper gets folded over or doesn't get seated just right to line up.
Yeah.
That's where we ran into problems. But you know, very similar circumstance with the filtering. We did the Orlon, the pre-filters. We did all that. Then we moved to glass. We went to the CDL. I think it was a 9-inch vacuum system. We did that with the pre-filters and the DE.
Mm-hmm.
That lasted 2 seasons, I think, and then we're like, whoa, this is a lot of work. It's just not doing it. Like, and the same thing. We ran into bad niter, and then we said we're just going to bite the bullet, and we ended up going to the Smoky Lake. But we didn't get the air diaphragm pump initially. We bought the old
the hand crank,
and we used that. But I'll tell you what, there was a couple of times we thought we were going to break it. We had that push boy. We were like, I don't know, and. So then this past year we upgraded to an air diaphragm, and boy, that's just nice. It just
is really nice. Yeah.
The bottler, we have a jacketed bottler that we use.
Same. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then we just move it there until we're ready to go. And
yeah,
two really kind of mistakes that we made by folding the paper or whatever. It is. So now, if you're running with that one, here's a question. How many cups of DE do you use per plate?
Yes.
Big question.
Probably on average, and I use like heaping cups.
Okay.
Probably between 8 and 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's what I know in the book, and in talking to, I think it was Courtney or Jim or somebody from there, they mentioned on one of the videos, in fact, 3 cups per window plate is what we were looking at initially.
Yeah.
So we were running about 15, and then we just added a couple more plates to get the
right
on it. But that has definitely made a big difference in the quality that's in the glass bottle. So amazing.
Right.
So yeah, I think we got to wrap up. I hear the cat screaming over there. Right?
I'm glad. I thought it was ours.
No, this has been great. Right?
No, I've been experimenting with the amount of the DE, and like you, our first vacuum filter was a 9-inch CDL, and it was doing okay. It was a little slow.
Yeah.
And one night we were out in the sugar house making syrup, and this fella come and visited us, and he dabbled in doing a little syrup, and he seen that thing work. He wanted to buy it off me. Well, instantly, and so I bought it from Roth Sugar Bush.
Yep.
I got it. They had like a sale in the summertime. I got a really good price on it when I bought it. It was new. A light bulb went on when that guy said he really liked it, so I sold it to him for more than I paid for it. And I turned around. I was on the phone the next morning with our local supplier, and I bought the 12-inch CDL, and we had better luck. It was faster.
Okay.
It was faster than
for a little while
than the 9-inch.
Yeah, nothing beats the filter press, 100%.
So where do you guys sell to? Do you sell just like consumers, or do you sell like wholesale or restaurants or anything like that?
We have a diner that's not far from us, and they sell ours. So we
okay.
Wholesale. And we have there's a pretty high end grocery store not far from us, and they sell it as well. but we
nice.
We sell most of it here on the farm.
Yeah.
And we have an online store. So I definitely want to do a farm stand similar to what you're describing. I've been talking about it for a few years now. So
yeah,
that's on the list. Definitely.
Why not? Why not? Jump in and do it.
Space, we have a building, so I know exactly where could fairly
right.
easily go. It's just
now. Are there any kind of weird laws about having retail or selling anything there that you'd have to abide by or change anything?
I think as long as we sell our own products, we
go
under what we already have.
And plus, we went through the certification process.
Yeah.
We are grown and certified, the cleanliness and all that stuff. So
right.
we're pretty much covered that way.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
The one problem is we, almost everybody at this table wants more taps, more fat, more syrup, that kind of thing. So we try to slow everybody down. Slow down.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see.
It's more and more and more until it's middle of season, and it's like, oh, please, no more.
One of the guys one of our suppliers from Leader tells us his saying is always, "Man, we love maple season. We love seeing it come, but we love seeing it go."
Yeah.
That's the truth.
How was your overall season this year?
It was okay. It wasn't great for us. We had very short and fast. I mean, we did a couple of midweek boils. We had to, we assess in the morning. Hey, listen, the tanks are full. Let's get at it tonight, and during the day, we go to work, come home. Everybody shows up, starts throwing wood and bottling and packaging and everything else. So we got it done. We're lucky. We're very lucky.
Yeah.
How long, when you say short, how long was your season this year?
Yeah, about 4 weeks. Yeah.
It's about.
We didn't even get, we actually had about 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, ours used to be 2 months, right? Like it was running for close to 2 months. We tap first week of January usually, and then we're usually pulling taps first week of April.
Yeah.
And the sap runs usually starts running around February, so gives us a chance to get stuff out. But yeah, just different.
Yeah, our usual time is like late February, and we can usually get all through March here. But the last 3-4 years, it's been a struggle.
We had to start earlier.
The last couple of years, my birthday is January 31st, and last year we were boiling on my birthday. That was the first ever, and we did make it all through February last year, but so our first open house last year, we have 2 weekends of it. The first one last year at the beginning of March, we had sap. The second weekend, we had just a little bit of sap. We had to stretch it, and we were done after that. And then it was basically the same this year, but we started.
It started much later.
A little later this year. It was like
a normal sort of.
Yeah, it was closer to the normal starting time, and basically.
But we struggled.
Usually, I got to the point where most of the time it's just Janet and I, and I work heavy highway construction, and I work a lot of long hours, and it's very hard to come home after working 10 or more hours in a day and do this. And I've just gotten to the point where I take off work.
Yeah.
I ask for a layoff, for however long. And I was only off 2.5 weeks this year. Now that was our season.
I think he's really more disappointed about that.
Yeah.
This has been great. Absolutely great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining
us. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Talking to you.
Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing more and hearing more from you guys.
Yeah, perfect. Definitely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Keep in touch. Thanks.